Come on, we're awake. We've been up all night watching this, but we are here to do this for you this morning. Good morning, welcome to Ireland AM on Virgin Media 1 and Virgin Media Play.
It is Wednesday, the 6th of November, and we've got everything from polls to pundits for you this morning.
Yes.
Why is that? What are you talking about?
It's been a busy night, and we've been watching it all from the comfort of our beds. On our phones. The tally in the United States is currently underway. We'll be bringing you updates at 7:15 a.m. and throughout the morning as more of those results come through for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be looking at the House of Representatives as well and the Senate, because a lot is going on across America. Now, closer to home, we are going to be discussing, this is hard, I don't know if you're going to be able to handle this one though, lads. If your air fryer is spying on you, do you think your phone is spying on you?
I don't mind frankly, I don't mind. It's one of these situations like Google. If the service is all right, I don't mind if they're looking through my private data. Similarly with an air fryer. I love it so much. I don't mind.
What private data do you have in your air fryer, babe?
You know, honestly, I've got an air fryer in every room, including the ensuite and the bedroom. I don't mind. The stuff it could see, though, let me tell you.
I don't want to know what you're frying.
It's not going to want to be spying.
I don't know what you're frying upstairs. We're going to be talking about that at 7:45.
Plus, for something completely different, we'll be sitting down with two crime journalists who joined forces to write a book on the notorious Kinahan gang. That's at about 9:35 this morning. And
he is back from a sojourn around the country. Alan Hughes, hello.
Good morning. Yes, later on, her designs have been seen on the arms of everyone from Angelina Jolie to Lady Diana handbag designer Anya Hindmarch is here at 9:20. And we're also some all-American comfort food in the kitchen because, yeah, it's the day that's in it. So we're going to be making sloppy joes. What are sloppy joes?
It's the last president. He's Kamala Harris's biggest problem.
Okay, we'll be making sloppy joes. Plus, as we keep you updated on the US election right throughout the morning, we'd like to know your thoughts on that or anything else that we're doing on the show. You can WhatsApp us now on 089 611 111. Now, Deric is packing a punch in Limerick this morning. Good morning to you, Deric.
Sloppy Joes, you need it for the day. That's it. Good one. Anyway, good morning, Al. Following our trip to the Midlands yesterday, we've landed down here in Limerick this morning, and it is a bit of a damp start, in fact, down here and across the Midwest, but it is only mainly dry and settled. A good deal of cloud cover out there today, and exceptionally mild. We've highs around 16 to 17 degrees out there, so quite unusual now for this time of year. Anyway, Kinahan in Limerick City is where we're at this morning. They have their Boxing Clever programme up and running. It's an initiative to help individuals on their journey through addiction. So we'll be spending the morning here with the local community. A little bit later on this morning, I have not slept a wink last night. I was up all night watching the elections, glued to it. Good morning from Limerick.
Good morning from Limerick.
We've all been watching it. We'll be joining Deric a little bit later on. A busy one for you. So
now it's time to take a look at this morning's papers, and obviously there is one story globally, but we're going to concentrate on other ones, and we'll be talking about America in just a little while. But the Irish Times headline: former rugby international found guilty of stealing. It states that former rugby international Brendan Mullen, who has been found guilty of stealing hundreds of thousands of euro from Bank of Ireland private bank when he was managing director a decade ago.
Just 26% of top-paying jobs are held by women, says the Irish Independent this morning, even though the proportion of women among the top 1% of earners has jumped by 7 percentage points in the last decade. They still only make up just over a quarter of the highest paid staff. In the last 5 years, that proportion has risen by 5%. And that's another glorious photograph as well on the front page there this morning.
The Mirror's front page: I thought he was going to kill me. A woman has taken a High Court civil action in which mixed martial arts star Conor McGregor and another man are facing sexual assault allegations. The allegations in the action are fully denied.
The rest of this morning's papers all lead with that same story there as well, as you can see. And that's pretty much all. Well, the papers were all printed last night, so the single biggest story across the planet has been the American elections.
Yes, we're going to be diving into the US presidential election and what we know so far coming out of the all-important 7 swing states that we've been talking about for the last few days. Just a few moments ago, CNN projected a win in one of those swing states, Pennsylvania, for Donald Trump. That puts him at 265 electoral votes out of the 270 needed for a win.
That's a projection. We'll be bringing you the latest reaction from the US after this short break. Stay on Ireland AM. You're very welcome back to Ireland AM now. As the counting continues in the US, CNN are now projecting a win in the key swing state of Pennsylvania for former President and Republican candidate Donald Trump.
Joining us to discuss the significance of that potential win is News Talk's political correspondent Sean Defoe and communications expert Gina London. Also live from New York, we've got News Talk's Kieran Cuddihy. Kieran, thank you so much for staying up for us. We'll be back with you in just a minute. Guys, we're just going to talk for people who are just waking up this morning. Sean, the situation that we're at is that it's looking like he's got 265 electoral college votes.
Yeah, it's over. It's done. He's winning this thing. 270 obviously is the magic number he needs to get to. He's probably going to win Wisconsin and Michigan as well, which are the two sort of blue wall states left to fall. But he has the numbers there. And it looks as though Trump may even win the popular vote, which he's never done at any election before. Sort of remarkable how much it changed from, when we went off air on News Talk last night about 1 a.m. It looked relatively positive. There were exit polls that showed that turnout was up, which was seen as maybe a good thing for Kamala Harris. Now it looks as though those Trump voters who don't come out for other elections were actually the ones who got out there. But one of the most interesting stats I thought out of it was when you look at maybe why this is happening, why people are turning towards Trump, was that more people felt worse off in this election cycle than they have in more than 20 years. More people felt worse off this time around than they did in 2008, in the biggest recession in probably our lifetimes. So people were clearly feeling it in the pocket. The economy was a big one. And the Harris campaign ultimately was quite poor. It turns out you can't run a poor candidate against Donald Trump and expect to win.
Wow, quite poor. Running into the campaign, well, they only had just over 100 days to run the campaign. Excuse me, but you do think that Harris was a weaker candidate?
I think she was a really weak candidate in the end. Yeah, I mean, Joe Biden, obviously, look, that was a whole other thing. He would have probably lost by more. His mental capacity was gone. That was the way it was. I think that she didn't take any risks in the campaign. She didn't appeal to new voters. Her whole argument essentially was, I'm not Trump and you should vote for me because of that, which it turns out not so compelling an argument. Enough of America wanted to vote for Donald Trump, and she didn't do the Joe Rogans. She didn't have a moment. Do you know what I mean? One of those big, come to me, America, this is my vision for America. The whole thing was, I'm not Trump, and that didn't appeal to enough people.
We all know that Barack Obama certainly did have that moment when everyone realised who he was. Gina, your reaction to what Sean's saying, that she just wasn't a strong enough candidate, or are we seeing gender politics at play? Because we have to remember, America is very different when it comes to gender than Europe.
This is a realignment of a very divided country. And as an American, and as someone who actually makes my living teaching and encouraging executives all over the world about compassionate leadership and integrity, this is a nation that has chosen, by a very thin margin, by the way, the fact that he may very likely win the popular vote, it's not a landslide. It is a very divided nation. And I will take issue at the fact that she didn't run a good campaign. She ran a damn good campaign. She was having a very difficult situation, having not, as Republicans pointed out, and rightly so, she wasn't elected as a primary. She didn't go through a primary situation. She was appointed because Joe Biden couldn't manage it. So she had things stacked against her. He had been running Donald Trump for 4 years to get back in the good graces and become the face of the not Republican Party, now the Donald Trump Party. She had a very, very uphill battle. I think she did actually quite well. However, he is right in the sense that more people came out for Donald Trump, and now we have a convicted felon who's going to pardon himself and be, assuming that he does win officially, he will be the first convicted felon to actually be in the White House. He has a Republican-controlled Senate, very likely going to have a Republican-controlled House. He has a Republican-controlled Supreme Court, which he is going to likely be able to appoint 2 new Supreme Court justices in no time. And he also has proclaimed all sorts of things that is going to be very terrifying. If you're waking up this morning and you're undocumented in the United States, you fear for what's going to happen next. It is, if you have any type of situation where you're feeling like your child is trans, you are absolutely terrified this morning.
And there's going to be an awful lot of working out exactly what's going to happen next.
If you're Zelensky, you're going to be...
Well, this is it. And
the ripple effect around... In Ireland in particular, Donald Trump has said right away he's going to lower the U.S. corporate tax rate from 21% to 15%. That makes it competitive against Ireland. The first company that says, okay, guys, we're going to get incentivized to go back to the United States. This is a situation that we should all
And I
be
suppose over the
concerned
next,
about.
today and over the next coming days, there's going to be a lot of understanding of exactly what this is going to mean if he gets across the line. I suppose breaking it down for Irish people that don't really understand, Sean, the way the Electoral College votes work. 270 is the figure that they have to hit. He is, as we say now, at 266. The American news networks are saying Harris is at 188, which is a long way off that 270. He's only got to get those 4 Electoral College votes. How does that work?
Yeah, so basically, whoever wins the state wins all the votes in the state. So it's not like in our system where if you get 14% of the vote and others are shared out and you might get transfers and all that sort of stuff. It doesn't apply. If you win the state even by a single vote, you win all of the Electoral College votes. And as you say, 270 is the magic number of that. So he just needs to win basically one more state of the ones remaining on the board, which he will, to get over that line. Whereas Harris really needed that blue wall, those states of Pennsylvania in particular, but also Wisconsin and Michigan to have any chance of re-election. The numbers are beyond her now.
Yeah, and worth noting that the different states, depending on the size of the population, have different numbers of Electoral College votes.
Correlated to the number of House reps and senators that you have.
Yeah, so like 1 to 3 in Alaska for Electoral College, but 1 to 750 or something in America, like it's in New York. It's very different as to
like
when it comes to
54 in
population.
California, because that's how many. That's the addition between their 2 senators and the number of proportional representatives that they have.
Kieran Cuddy is in New York this morning. Good morning, Kieran. Obviously, you are sitting in a very blue state, but that doesn't matter.
Both literally and figuratively.
Yes, absolutely. What's the reaction been like there, Kieran?
Myrne, I have a prop with me to answer that question. So do you see this? If you think that looks like the plastic bag that comes in the bin in my hotel room, you'd be right. It's exactly what it is. So when the first exit poll came in from the major networks about 10 o'clock last night, Irish time, this will happen. It was like, whoosh, all the air getting sucked out of the Harris balloon. That's what the atmosphere was like for the rest of the night. Look at that. Damp. So basically what we learned from that, or certainly the people I was with at these kind of watch parties and stuff, what their interpretation was, maybe unlike some of the people Sean was talking to who thought, oh, this is a good sign, this increased turnout. They said, well, the increased turnout means that all the polling data we have up until now is kind of thrown out the window, because that was based on turnout being pretty similar to 2020. So all that data is gone. And then what data can you rely on? Well, the data in the exit poll, which is what? As the guys have mentioned, massive dissatisfaction with Joe Biden and a sense that you are worse off now than you were 4 years ago. And I don't know how, and certainly the people I was with, and I am in the blue state, so mostly Kamala Harris supporters, none of them could understand at that point, even at that early point, how she was going to get over the line if the only data you could rely on was all of this dissatisfaction and a sense that you were worse off while she was vice president.
An awful lot was made, and thank you so much for doing a Neil Buchanan from Art Attack there a second ago, Kieran Cuddy. There's a reference for you from the 90s. I think an awful lot with the exit polls and people thinking that this was going to be a tight race, and we have seen so many figures that are quite surprising. In Philadelphia in 2016, amongst black male voters, he had Donald Trump at 10% support. He's gotten that to 25% just 8 years later. So what have they done that they've turned these demographics on their head? Because they were really hoping that women were going to come out for Kamala. It seems like they did come out, but more people voted who we didn't expect to. 1 in 3 ethnic minorities going for Donald Trump.
Yeah, listen, it'll take greater minds than mine to really understand exactly that. But you're right on the female voter point. I mean, lots of the women I spoke to, and again, this is just anecdotal, but it was reflected in the data that we have and what you've talked about. They all talked to me about abortion rights. The people who were voting, the women who were voting for
Kieran,
we're just going to interrupt you. Sorry, man. We'll send you back to the bin for a minute or two because we want to go over live to Donald Trump. He's speaking at Mar-a-Lago at the moment as he's speaking to his supporters.
Political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and It is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day, I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have. This is victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again. And in addition to having won the battleground states of North Carolina, I love these places, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, we are now winning in Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Alaska, which would result in us carrying at least 315 electoral votes. But it's much easier doing what the networks did or whoever called it, because there was no other path. There was no other path to victory. We also have won the popular vote. That was great. Very proud of that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And, winning the popular vote was very nice, I will tell you. It's a great feeling of love. We have a great feeling of love in this very large room with unbelievable people standing by my side. These people have been incredible. They've made the journey with me, and we're going to make you very happy. We're going to make you very proud of your vote. I hope that you're going to be looking back someday and say that was one of the truly important moments of my life when I voted for this group of people beyond the president, this group of great people. America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate. We have taken back control of the Senate. Wow, that's good. And the Senate races in Montana, Nevada, Texas, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, were all won by the MAGA movement. They helped so much. And in those cases, every one of them, we worked with the senators. They were tough races, and I mean, the number of victories in the Senate was absolutely incredible. And we did tele-rallies. We did tele-rallies with each one of them. And sometimes we did 2 or 3 and it was amazing to look at all of those victories. Nobody expected that, nobody. So I just wanted to thank you very much for that. And you have some great senators and some great new senators. And it also looks like we'll be keeping control of the House of Representatives. And I want to thank Mike Johnson. I think he's doing a terrific job. Terrific job. I want to also thank my beautiful wife, Melania, First Lady. Who has the #1 best-selling book in the country. Can you believe that? Oh, no, she's done a great job. Works very hard to help people. So I just want to thank her. But I want to thank my whole family, my amazing children, and they are amazing children. Now, we all think our children are amazing. Everybody here thinks their children are amazing, but that's a good thing when you think they are. But Don, Eric, Ivanka, Tiffany, Barron, there's Laura, Jared, Kimberly, Michael, thank you all. What a help. What a great. My father-in-law, Victor, is tremendous, and we miss very much Melania's mother, Amalia. We miss Amalia, don't we, huh? She would be very happy right now, standing on this stage. She'd be so proud. She was a great woman, that one. Beautiful inside and out. She was a great woman. I want to be the first to congratulate our great, now I can say, Vice President-elect of the United States, J.D. Vance.
And we've just lost it there. Everyone's getting a thank you at the moment. He still hasn't mentioned Kamala Harris.
Well, he just said just right there, wasn't it?
What?
Now thank God. Oh, no, sorry, that was J.D. Vance.
It was
He was
Vance
going
who
his
was
own.
thanking.
Sorry.
Harris's campaign they haven't conceded, and they have said that she's not going to be speaking until tomorrow because there's still a bunch of states, but trying to determine a path to 270 electoral votes. At this stage, it's looking more and more difficult, and clearly that's his victory speech. He was always going to declare victory anyway, but he's much closer to it tonight.
Wasn't expecting so much about his dead mother-in-law, but she was certainly mentioned inside there. Welcome back to Ireland AM. If you're just waking up, we just heard from Donald Trump, who's declared victory, and we're bringing you all the latest from the US as this is going on in the presidential election. Just to say that Kamala Harris has not spoken so far and has not conceded.
They've declared that they're still counting votes. Sean Defoe and Gina London have stayed with us in studio. News Talk's Kieran Cuddihy is joining us live from New York as well. And last we were speaking, Kieran, we were talking to you. And I suppose, you were watching the speech, his victory speech. It was always inevitable he was going to declare victory, no matter what happened. Mm-hmm. But he is so much closer to victory than I suppose an awful lot of us expected.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I thought his victory speech would have been better if he had used the little plastic bag as a prop. But, whatever, I'm here to offer advice if he's listening. No, listen, his speech was like any speech you'd imagine from him. I'm not sure, I think it was during the ad break there, but he rambled on about the paint job on Elon Musk's rockets and how the flames from re-entry damage the paint and they have to develop a paint that's going to kind of withstand that. Anyway, kind of the usual bizarre bonker stuff. But the bizarre bonker stuff we're going to be listening to for 4 years. Mm-hmm. I guess that's what we're kind of facing. But in terms of what we were talking about maybe before he started the speech and voting patterns, it's interesting. I was earlier with a few people who would have been very close friends of the Clintons and campaigned with Hillary Clinton. And she was kind of hurt by the fact that she didn't convince more women to vote for her. That's something that really kind of lingered for her after that campaign. And it looks like, as we were saying, and as you mentioned, Warren, that Kamala Harris managed to right that wrong, as it were, although kind of largely that was probably due to abortion more than it was to Kamala Harris. But we were also talking about kind of those ethnic voting blocks. And one piece of analysis I kind of heard on the show, on the radio over the last couple of days was that actually we just had an old-fashioned way of thinking about, say, the Latino vote, for example, that we think of it as that Latino vote. And actually the Latino vote now, the male Latino vote, is actually more just an ethnic working class vote. That's what we should think about. That Latina women are likely to be college educated. Latino men are likely to just be in blue-collar jobs. And they're voting the way anybody, white, black, any other colour, in blue-collar jobs are voting.
And I think this is, Gina, this is one thing, because we've got these paradigms, these things that we've looked at when it comes to the American Electoral College. Just to say that CNN are still projecting they've got 266 Electoral College votes. He is still not at the 270 needed to actually declare victory. We do look at America in this way of, well, people vote, Michigan votes this, the blue wall of this. It's all changed. Like everything, as we can see from today, it is.
Yeah,
all
the
changed.
demographic blocks that we are accustomed to speaking of, we need to be delineating them better now. Obviously, the urban black young male vote came out more for Donald Trump in this. Then we have urban black women who came out more for Kamala. And you can go down, as Karen was just saying, it's not a Latino block. There's demographics within that. And so when you think about, and of course the dichotomy of the Trump vote, which is on one side billionaires like Elon Musk, and on the other side disenfranchised people who have been feeling the pain perception-wise or realistically about what they feel like they were experiencing with the 4 years of Donald Trump versus what they were feeling under the Biden. And so here we are today. How do you bridge that gap? How do you reach across to those people? The one thing I did like, at least so far, from Donald Trump's speech, which I can't believe I've even saying that, is that he didn't use words like carnage and retribution. I mean, I expect they'll come later, but I'm not that hopeful. But in this initial time when he came on stage, he talked about bringing people back together. I mean, that's the only hope that we have.
Yep. That was one thing that happened there.
Sean, you, like the rest of the world, for Trump's first 4 years in office, Warren was making the observation. We woke up every morning to find out what's he said, or what was his latest statement or pronouncement, or his latest press gather. Yeah, what's the latest controversy?
Tweet.
Is there any chance that we're going to get a more stable version of that this time around?
No, I doubt it. And I'm slightly more worried about this version of Trump, because I don't think Trump actually has all that much interest in governing. He has an interest in settling scores and doing well for himself and business and all the rest of it, and being seen on the world stage and having a legacy, all that kind of stuff. But what is more worrying this time is he doesn't have a stabilising team around him. He had a team of quote-unquote normal or moderate Republicans around him, John Kelly and others, who kept him in check, had the guardrails up. This time he has no such thing. It's all MAGA, Trump loyalists, people who will do whatever he says and are in the position because of it. And he was talking, as Kieran was saying, about Elon Musk in that speech there, who effectively weaponized X as a social media platform to be political, who has said he's going to pump billions of dollars into American campaigning to affect other races. You've got people like J.D. Vance who are going to go out and do the business that Trump himself won't do because he's too lazy to do, but they now have their hands on the tillers of power. And that's probably more worrying, particularly for Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine is like that huge bits of Ukraine
let's talk
will be
about
carved
that
off here now.
Like, we know that foreign policy is very low down voters, what voters think in America. It's not really what they're concentrated on. But if you're Vladimir Zelensky and if you are Ukrainian people right now, and we are seeing a big issue like desertion, there's so much fatigue at this war. We're going into the third year. How are they feeling this morning? And how are the people of Gaza going to be feeling this morning?
Yeah, well, I mean, particularly Ukraine, he said he wants to end the war and that there has to be a settlement. And that settlement is give up a load of territory to Putin and Russia. That's exactly where it's going to be. I mean, you were talking about Gaza in the break. I don't know what way you think that's going to go now.
I think he's had calls with Netanyahu. He is friends with Netanyahu. He has said to Netanyahu, do whatever it takes. I don't think there's a two-state solution. I don't think there's a solution for the Palestinians
but enough of it we saw
right now.
And we saw there was, Mehdi Hassan was always talking about it, going, what is going on with this Muslim vote going towards Donald Trump? He's not going to do anything for the Gazan people. But at the same time, they seem to have said, well, they're funding this genocide. They're funding Israel, so we're going to vote against Democrats.
I think there was some movement in the Muslim community in the United States initially when Biden was still running, and they were upset with the administration's not getting a ceasefire and not moving that fast forward. Then when they, of course, also saw how much they didn't like either one of them, where Trump was with Netanyahu either. So I don't know the results of what those voting blocs may have done in Michigan and the other states where they have bigger sway. But make no mistake that the patterns of behavior of Donald Trump are that he is he moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. I mean, he is very much pro-Netanyahu. I don't say pro-Israel, I say pro-Netanyahu. He capitulates and loves the flattery of people he perceives as strongmen. So people say, oh, he's going to make a big difference he's going to be the strong guy. No, he's going to be the one who looks the flattering from that strongman and then moves into a direction of can we make a business deal?
These are all, and of course there's the abortion issue as well. These are all big, important issues that are sitting on this side of the Atlantic. We're all thinking, what's the right thing to do? What's the right way to vote? But that's not, Kieran, if you're still with us, Kieran's in America, and albeit in New York. I suppose the question is, this hasn't been top of mind for Americans. Even in Blue New York, they're saying it's all about money. It's all about the price of milk.
Yeah, it's all about the price of milk, price of a bag of chips. I think that exit poll I mentioned earlier that the big networks had done, foreign policy was at about kind of 4%, on people's radar as a priority issue. That's where it came in. But it's fascinating. I'm always fascinated. Over the next 4 years, the overwhelming amount of attention that Donald Trump will get in Ireland will be because of things he says and the outrageous things he says, as opposed to, the things that actually matter from an Irish point of view. And anybody who's kind of involved in business, or certainly the business of kind of the predicting the direction of financial markets, will understand this concept of the signal and the noise. And the noise is all the nonsense that he comes out with, like that about the paint job on rockets as they're caught. The signal is, what's he going to do about Articles 4 and 5 in NATO when we reverse the United States out of their commitments in that regard? What's he going to do about the corporate tax rate in the United States? And what's his attitude going to be to US companies channeling money through Ireland? And listen, members of government might reject my description of channeling money through Ireland, but that's what they're doing, and they do it to our benefit. What's going to happen with tariffs? He's talking about between 10 and 20% blanket tariffs
it's
across
huge,
the board.
and we know
that immediately makes life more expensive.
Yeah, we know the repercussions of this go far beyond the borders of the United States of America. Listen, Kieran, thank you so much for staying up for us. We'll let you get back to your plastic bag. We know you were having a great time. Kieran Cuddy from News Talk. Gina, there it is again. Thank you,
Thanks
Kieran.
for staying up, man.
If anyone missed the first bit with the plastic bag, sorry about that, but it was very funny. Gina London and Sean Defoe, thank you both so much for being
Thanks for a
here
laugh
today.
at the end there. I needed it.
Thank you so much.
Well,
Back with you in Ireland Day in just a
definitely.
minute.
Good morning, and you're very welcome back to Wednesday's Ireland AM.
You are indeed. Now, if you are just waking up, we've got some news. Donald Trump, he has edged closer to a White House comeback. We will be bringing you the latest with Virgin Media News correspondent Richard Chambers. He will be joining us live from Washington, D.C. shortly.
Also, on today's show, we sit down with crime journalists Stephen Breen and John Hand about their book on the Kinahan assassins and their behind-the-scenes access.
Yeah, very interesting that. And for something completely different, her handbags are always in the clutch of fashionistas like Sarah Jessica Parker.
Know her.
Delighted. Angelina Jolie.
Heard of her.
You know that one as well. Designer Anya Hindmarch will be here at 9:20.
And what's happening in the kitchen this morning, Alan?
Well, Ray, look who we have here. Gina Daly is here making us a dish that tastes better than it sounds, because you're making sloppy joes for the day that's in it in America. What's a sloppy joe?
So it's a deconstructed burger. So it's loose mince in a bun with lots of spices and sauces, and it's just a mess.
But it's like mince in the pan and then you put it into a bun.
So we're going to make it on the pan and then you load it into the bun. So it's kind of like a chili con carne.
Chili con carne in a bun.
Yeah, but we'll call it a sloppy joe.
And I can imagine it got sloppy joe because the bits of it's falling out everywhere. Yeah.
You remember getting that when the nightclubs used to have to serve food to stay open, and you got a chili con carne. Ours was a chili con carne in Docks in Limerick.
Yeah, ours is chicken curry.
Chicken curry.
Chicken curry.
Chicken curry.
Chicken curry.
Guys, you know what we want you to do?
Nobody be eating them.
Let us know what was the free food. You got 0896 111 111.
In 92.
It was so good.
A sloppy joe. Now, Deric is stepping into the ring at the Limerick boxing clever program this morning. No sloppy joes where you are, Deric.
No sloppy joes. Are you a fan of sloppy joes, Brian?
I love a sloppy joe.
It's coming your way in the kitchen a little bit later on. Anyway, welcome down here to Culinary in Limerick this morning. We're down to home. Maria O'Sullivan is with us. Maria, tell us about this programme that's up and running, Boxing Clever.
Yeah, so Boxing Clever is a 20-week programme for those who are in recovery from addiction and substance misuse. It's a lot more than a boxing programme, though. It's an educational programme with 2 QQI level 5 modules included.
All right, and it's all to tie in with the Limerick Sports Partnership as well.
Yes, yeah. So I work for Limerick Sports Partnership. We're part of a network of 29 local sports partnerships across Ireland, and our overall aim is to promote and enhance physical activity amongst communities in Ireland.
All right, we're going to be hanging out in the ring a little bit later on. We've got the gloves on here. Are you ready for a fight?
Ready, let's
It's
go.
a red and blue country down here, as you can see. Back to you in studio. Come on.
You're right there. You're getting into it.
Yeah, we skip it. Do you know what? They're up early this morning.
They certainly are. What a brilliant initiative, by the way. Now it's time to check in on today's papers that were, of course, printed last night. So they are missing the big Trump news that you just heard in our news, and we'll be keeping you up to date on as well. Let's start with the Irish Times. The headline there, former rugby international found guilty of stealing. It talks about the former international rugby player Brendan Mullen. It says he's been found guilty of stealing hundreds of thousands of euro from Bank of Ireland private bank. And this happened when he was a managing director a decade ago.
Just 26% of top-paying jobs are held by women, even though the proportion of women among the top 1% of earners has jumped by 7 percentage points in the last decade. They still only make up just over a quarter of the highest paid staff. In the last 5 years, that proportion has risen by 5%. That's the front page of the Irish Independent this morning.
Very apt story for the day that's in it, isn't it? The Mirror goes with, I thought he was going to kill me. A woman has taken a High Court civil action in which mixed martial arts star Conor McGregor and another man are facing sexual assault allegations. The allegations in the action are fully denied.
And the rest of this morning's newspapers all lead with that same story. There's the Examiner, the Herald and the Irish Daily Mail, the Sun as well. Leading with that, and the Star as well, with Conor McGregor on the front pages. They're the newspapers, like I said, they were last night, and it's all about the election.
It's all about
The
Trump
American
this
election.
morning.
Trump
Yes,
this
he's
morning.
already accepted the fact that he is president. He made a speech earlier on thanking everybody, including his mother-in-laws and everybody.
The dead mother-in-law speech was a bit...
Yeah,
that
it was.
It was what you kind of expect from Donald Trump.
But you know what? Lots of you are texting in, and I just look at Marina. I think she summed it up here. The American people have spoken.
Mm-hmm.
We must respect that and not thinking of ourselves and tariffs. He obviously is well liked by a huge amount of the American people. And he is, because it looks like he might even win the public vote, which he did. The popular vote,
yeah.
which he didn't the last time. You know,
They don't like women. I'll tell you that much.
Hell, I've always backed Trump. Let's face it, he's pure entertainment. I suppose if you're voting for entertainment, then that's the correct way to vote. When the world was in lockdown, he kept us all going with his randomness. Okay,
right. Okay,
he isn't the worst, and says what a lot of people are thinking and just afraid to say. Entertainment and randomness.
Not necessarily things you want in a leader, do you?
Alan, it says, it looks like, as we can see, the economy was massive
Yeah.
in this win. That has been the top issue that people have talked about. It's a disaster for the rest of the world.
Yeah, and Donna says, I'm a US citizen in Ireland on a critical skills visa, working as a nurse. I voted for Harris. I'm absolutely sick with fear and anxiety of Trump's win. I'm hoping my worst fears won't come true.
One of the things I mentioned earlier on that I saw, one of the first comments I saw this morning online was a male Trump supporter saying to a woman, your body, my choice, get used to it. That was quite the thing to say. Denise, like 4 years ago, I'm waking up completely in shock that this has happened. I lived in Florida for 32 years, and I really fear that people are going to realise what this actually means to everyone when the chips fall, because we should also say it looks like they have won the Senate. We don't know what's quite happening with the House of Representatives, but that they have won back the Senate. So if he's got all three, and it looks like he might get 2 more Supreme Court justices as well during his 4-year tenure, it'd be a very interesting situation.
It could be locking things down for America for generations to come.
Yep.
Thanks for all of your correspondence.
Yes, thank you for getting in touch with us, and keep sending in your text to 089 611 111.
Now, after the break, we will get more US election updates. There is going to be other things on the show, but we're going to stick with this.
We'll have a
for
bit of fun
little while.
too.
We will.
Sloppy
I promise
Joes.
you.
Sloppy Joes are coming up.
We'll be analysing the latest polling results from America, looking at what a Trump win could mean for us in Ireland. What are the repercussions for us? Stay with us. We'll find out after this.
Keep your Joe on stop.
You're very welcome back. Now, Donald Trump is on course to become the 47th president of America as he looks set to win the popular vote.
As well, yeah, joining us now is TUD media lecturer Harry Brown and Irish Time political correspondent Jack Horgan-Jones. Thank you both so much for being here. We've also got live from Washington, D.C., Virgin Media News correspondent Richard Chambers. Richard, thank you so much. You're out in the streets of Washington. Can we just talk about the situation currently? They're looking at a key race alert right now on CNN, but at the moment we've got it as he's got 266 electoral college votes for Donald Trump.
Yeah, look, Muireann, it's all over by the shouting at this point in time. There's no point in ruminating over what key races are left to play. The rest of the world needs to get used to the idea that Donald Trump is going to be the 47th president of the United States, having already been the 45th president, only the second US president ever regained the office, having lost it in an election. And really, this is something which I think European leaders, officials in government buildings will be watching through their fingers over the coming hours as they try to get their heads around it. What's happened here in Washington is it's about 20 past 3 in the morning. We've come from Kamala Harris's election party uptown in Howard University. Not much of a party there. She's not due to speak there in the early hours of the morning as had been planned. Everybody has effectively left there, streaming out into the streets, nobody wanting to talk at this point. It was not the night that they had anticipated, but Trump supporters jubilant. And he is now looking forward to a second term. He's already talked about appointing Elon Musk to key roles. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has talked about removing fluoride from water. Donald Trump says that's a good idea. So you're already seeing the pieces fall into place for what Donald Trump could do in a second term.
Thanks, Richard, for joining us from America, and thanks for staying up so late. Jack, I suppose we always knew it was going to be tight, and there was a lot of hope, I suppose. Kamala Harris was running on hope.
So it's not tight in the end. That's the story. It's a landslide for Donald Trump, or at least it looks likely that it's going to be a landslide at this stage. And to take a step back from the presidential election, it also looks like the Republicans are going to take control of the Senate. So that obviously opens the way for him to implement large swathes of his policy platform if he can prove to be a more effective president and run a more effective White House than he did in the first term. I think that means for Ireland, from a kind of parochial point of view, that one of his preoccupations, which is the enduring idea in his head that America is on the receiving end of a raw deal in terms of international trade and a tendency towards beggar the neighbour, zero-sum approach to international trade, is more likely to get a run, and things like a cut to the US corporate tax rate, the introduction of tariffs and the potential of a trade war, or at least a tariff war between the EU and the US becomes more likely. So looking at it from our point of view, we are a country that has, made its economic policy around the idea that there will be flows of trade, people and money, and anything that presents a headwind to that is obviously an issue for the Irish economic model. So that's going to be focusing minds on this side of the Atlantic and certainly in government buildings this morning. And
we've increasingly seen within Europe, because this is all contextualised and this is a global issue, of course, and we have seen in Europe, where there's increasing divisions within Europe along certain things. And Donald Trump, as you've mentioned, has said an awful lot of times, Europe don't take our cars, they don't take our food, they don't take our chickens. This isn't fair. We need to do something. And what could that look like, Harry?
Well, we don't know. We don't know. And Trump says 20% tariffs, but he also says we put pressure on, we do deals. He's the art of the deal. And he sees himself as a player in a series of negotiations on international trade where the United States has been soft in the past and can do better in terms of building its own industry. Most economists, including the right-wing economists that are going to be staffing his White House, don't particularly like the idea of tariffs. And, I'm not sure it's particularly likely that it's going to go down in the way that he suggests. And he, of course, can frame it in terms of a negotiating position. That's what he does. Yeah. He's won this election, though, on the economy. There's been a massive class realignment in this election, that the households earning under $100,000 a year have gone Republican, of all races, have gone Republican for basically the first time in my lifetime that I know about, the first time that the exit polls have registered such a result. It's an extraordinary, poor and working class people didn't want to elect a good vibes president. We were here talking about Brat Summer a couple of months ago. Kamala Harris was on SNL a few nights ago, and the theme of that appearance was, hey, it's going to be cool now. We're going to be able to relax. That's not how people felt. Dissatisfied and angry, 70% in the exit polls. That's not a formula for a good vibes election.
Well, like I was saying to Jack, Kamala Harris running on hope when the biggest issue seemed to be the economy, the single biggest focus. Did she miss a trick in terms of running on the economy?
Well, look, she ran a very conservative campaign, big C and little c. She went out with Liz and Dick Cheney, old-style Republicans, and was constantly telling the electorate how much old-style Republicans like her. Americans don't like old-style Republicans. There hasn't been an old-style Republican president for 16 years now.
Yeah.
And so there's a real sense in which she couldn't say what was different about her from Biden. Literally in an interview, she'd be asked that question and she'd sort of pivot away. So she had an unpopular president, a conservative campaign. It was like an experiment in how little you could say or do on behalf of people who were grieved about the Palestine war, about the state of the economy. And I think that experiment clearly failed.
Is there something to be said for gender politics in this, Jack, when it comes to it? A woman ran against Donald Trump in 2016, Hillary Clinton. She won the popular vote, but she did not become president. The same with Kamala Harris. We know that in America, it's not like Europe when it comes to men and women. Like that there is, we think about New York and we think about California and, you know, everything's equal and everything's great, but it's not like that. We're America not ready for a female president.
I think that's unavoidably one of the outcomes, and I don't think that you can get away from the question of race either. You know, Kamala Harris is a woman of colour. And the question has to be asked whether the US electorate, large swathes of which reacted so poorly to having a person of colour in the White House before, was ready for that double whammy. What's interesting and what differentiates the Harris campaign from the Clinton campaign in 2016 is that Hillary Clinton very much foregrounded gender and made cracking the glass ceiling, the last most tough glass ceiling, a cornerstone of her messaging, whereas Harris kind of didn't foreground it so much, but you can't get away from it. You know, it is.
Well, but abortion was a huge issue in this campaign.
Very much so. And what's interesting as well, in the midterm elections, when people were kind of expecting the Republicans to do quite well, the issue of abortion and reproductive rights really mobilised large cohorts of college-educated, but also just generally female voters to come out and support Democratic candidates. But that didn't replicate itself for whatever reason, or if it did replicate itself, it was overwhelmed by the segments of the electorate that would traditionally be seen as Democratic-leaning, so black men and Hispanic people, who were more susceptible to the arguments coming from the Trump side.
And I think people weren't convinced that anything could be done about abortion. Now, look, we're seeing the Senate and the House going the way we expected them to go, which is Republican. The Democrats didn't make a persuasive case that they could do something on the federal level about abortion.
To have them indeed there.
We're just looking at so we know the 270 electoral college votes is the magic number, the number that they have to hit. He's at 266, she's at 195. We're still looking at a number of other states who are still counting. Is there any, I mean, clutching at straws maybe, she's at 195, Harry, is there any route to her?
No, there isn't. And look, you know, the polling was pretty accurate in this election. It's probably off by 1 or 2 points in the direction of Donald Trump, but certainly not a miss by the extent of the previous two elections. It was a very close election. It's a landslide only in the sense that all of the very tight states have gone to Trump. They've gone to Trump by between kind of 2 and 4%.
What does this look like? Right. I know, like, we're looking forward and what happens in January when he becomes the 47th president of America. And he's no longer has, you know, kind of traditional Republicans around him. He's got his family around him. He's got RFK around him, who doesn't like fluoride and is going to take over women's health, apparently. And Elon Musk.
Right.
What does, like, he wants to go play golf in Mar-a-Lago. What does his presidency look like? Baron Trump? Is he going to be pushing some buttons?
That's a very good question. I think it was helpful to him that he ended up having this sort of rainbow coalition of, you know, what Tim Walz called weirdos around him. But that frankly had a lot of kind of niches that the American
But they're
people
not
recognized.
legislators. Do you know what I mean? Like, what does
Well,
it
like this is the thing. Government is hard, and it's arguably harder than campaigning.
Yeah. And it can be boring and tedious.
And while the first Trump White House left an indelible mark on American politics through the Supreme Court, in terms of putting a lot of its domestic agenda into play, it was kind of consumed by its own inherent chaos, by the kind of the court politics that he was willing to allow play out, the petty rivalries that consumed the team, the family, all these kind of things. So I think one of the big questions when he takes power in January is going to be whether that replicates itself in his second administration and you get a self-limiting factor because he is such a volatile person and is so given to pettiness and enmity and all these kind of things, or whether the kind of staid managerialism of the Republican Party can extend itself to him, and whether effective kind of policymakers are around him. And my sense is that will be more of the same.
There's a new kind of managerial type who's part of this now, and that's the tech bros.
Yeah.
And I think that's a factor that we have to watch out for in this. They won't settle for a chaotic Trump.
Yeah,
White
but they
House.
also like deregulation as well. It's going to be very interesting. Jack Horgan-Jones, political correspondent from the Irish Times, and of course, Harry Brown, media lecturer in TUD. Thank you both so much for being with us today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, for the day that's in it, what's that day now? What's happening in America? Oh, yeah, there was an election.
Big day.
Yes. So we're going to make some American food this morning.
Yeah, so we need some comfort food. And given the results that are coming in at the moment, joining us now for a classic taste of the USA is Gina Daly. Gina, good morning, and what are we having?
Hello.
She's having a hot flush. Are you having a hot flush, love?
That's from the pan. So we're doing sloppy joes today. So these are very traditional American food.
I've never heard of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. I suppose it's like a deconstructed burger, and it's kind of like a chili con carne as well, but it's a little bit spicier.
It's the type of thing I would go for because I'm loving what you have here this morning.
Kind of sweet as well, actually.
Yeah, and the mince queen returns, so I'm back with more mince.
Do you know what? We love that because cost-friendly at the moment.
Exactly, yeah. Like these are great dinners because you can bulk them up and they go a long way. So I've just fried off some mince and into this. Now, the thing about this, you can make it spicy or mild, depending on what you like. So into our mince, we're going to I season it with soy sauce, just for a bit of sweetness, a little bit of saltiness. Worcester sauce, again, just gives it an extra layer of flavour. Some smoked paprika, which gives this a nice kind of earthy, smoky taste. Garlic granules, always my favourite thing to have in the press if I don't have fresh garlic. And then you're just going to fry that off, let it kind of all come together. And then if you want it spicy, this is what I add in. So I use hot sauce. So you can use a buffalo or a regular one, and it's because you've got a lot of mince, it's not going to be that spicy.
Says she, as I nearly coughed up there.
But also what I do is I add a little bit of ketchup, which is just going to give the mince kind of, when it's brown, and a nice kind of caramelised look and taste to it as well. And then the hot sauce. So there's 150 mils of hot sauce that I pop in. And
now, is that a lot now?
That is, it looks like a lot to me, but you're going to be simmering that off, are you?
Now, if you're using a lot more mince, so I just have a small amount of mince in this pan. So if you're using a big, like last night I was doing a huge big one, so it doesn't seem as much in a bigger. So when that's cooking off, you just let that kind of reduce down until it thickens
How
up.
much mince was that? Was that like a pound of mince? Was that like a carton of mince that you buy now?
That was only about 500 grams of mince.
500 grams.
Now,
Okay.
the a very American part to this is to bind all your mince together, you throw in some plastic cheese, American cheese, fine cheddar cheese. And what that does is, because it doesn't need much to melt down, the sauce will let that kind of...
So you wouldn't be wasting a good, expensive cheese on this now?
God, no.
No.
And the cheese is in the sauce. I thought you might stick it on at the end. No,
you can
it's in the
do
sauce.
like I do cheese sauce all the time, like for over chips and stuff like that. So it's simply just cheese slices. Now you can do it with cheddar, but with cheddar you need milk to break so it doesn't go stringy. But with this one, you just use water or even steam, melts it down, pop it in the microwave. And what that does then is it just brings the whole dish together and it gives it a nicer flavour. So when that's ready, that's going to take a few minutes.
Yeah.
You're supposed to put some vegetables in it. So you put a bit of onion, it's going to add some flavour, and my body can't be dealing with chopping live on air, so I brought a little doodah with me.
The doodah is very cool.
The doodah is very cool. I'm liking the doodah.
And there's no crying
It's
with
really
it.
handy, yeah.
So
and I still
onion
have
goes
my
in there.
fingers.
What else goes in?
So a pepper, and that's just give it a bash.
There you go. Look at
In,
this.
now,
Get your stress out.
yeah, I like my vegetables crunchy. So if you like them soft, saute them off first. Let that.
But there is a nice bit. I love a bit of a crunch of an onion and things like that.
And a lovely colour to it as well. So you can add a red or a yellow pepper. And then when it's finished and it's all simmered down, you have something.
There it is there.
Like
Very
this.
nice.
So
how long would that take, Gina? So what are you simmering it for? It
about
shouldn't take-
about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So to let the cheese, everything combine together. And at this stage, if you want, a sloppy joe obviously is meant to be sloppy.
Yeah.
So this one you can see is
That's
quite dry.
perfect,
Yeah,
yeah.
So for me, that's the way I like it, so it doesn't dribble down me.
And
but
of course, you don't have to be standing over that for the 20 minutes either, do
no,
you?
just put it on a
Because
low
you've
heat.
Good, a low heat.
A low
yeah.
heat and let it simmer away. And then if you do want it more saucy and more sloppy, add cheese.
More cheese.
Yeah, and what I'd usually do is add a little bit of milk. Milk is actually nice with mince. It's a very Italian thing to do. They do it with bolognese and it gives it a really creamy...
Put milk into the bolognese.
Yeah, it's absolutely delicious.
Full
It will
fat,
surprise you. Oh, yeah. Or cream or whatever. But milk, I put milk into it with the cheese. Let it go kind of...
Oh, you see that?
nice
Or gooey.
and stringy.
Lovely.
And then if you want... Now, this is actually lovely with hot dogs. So you could put a hot dog in here, put this
Yeah.
over the top so you have like chili cheese
Chili
dogs.
dog, yeah.
Or serve it in a burger bun, which it's more traditionally done. You're just going to load up.
Oh, look at that.
And it's sloppy. It's
You know
messy.
what, that's what it is then.
Sloppy and fun. The best kind of dinners.
I'd say kids would love this.
My kids adore this.
I can imagine them loving that now, yeah.
And then what I do, again, a very American thing, crispy onions.
I must buy some of them now again. I remember I did buy them and I loved them. I was putting them on everything. Crispy onions was like leg of lamb, crispy onions.
They go really well with everything. Crispy onions on top. Bit of extra cheese, because never hurt anybody.
There you go. And it's as simple as that.
And it's as simple as that. And then you have, eat it at your own risk or with a fork.
go on.
Already eaten it.
Raise-
I'm not going to lie, it's quite spicy. I suppose you
This
can
one-
make it as spicy as you want,
I
depending on
actually
who's in
put
the house.
spicy slaw on yours as well. So sorry.
All right,
No
that's
problem.
why.
I don't mind spicy, but like the kids might be screaming at me if I made it this hot.
Yeah, so again,
But
just
then you-
use a
you know
regular,
yourself, yeah.
coleslaw and then tone your spices down. And if you don't want to use the hot sauce, just use the ketchup and a bit of American mustard, and it gives a really nice flavour to your mince.
It's
Yeah.
delicious though. And as you said, that's cost friendly as well.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Yeah.
Gina, always a pleasure.
Full of flavour.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, Gina. Coming up, Deric dons the boxing gloves as he takes to the ring.
Yes, he's going to get ready to rumble right after this break.
Now, Deric has been in the Treaty City discovering a programme that is a knockout.
Yes, Boxing Clever aims to help people with recovery from addiction through boxing and education.
Deric, good morning. Tell us more, sir.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Fight and talk down here in Limerick this morning. We're live in Kinahan in the heart of Limerick City, and we're talking all things their Boxing Clever programme. It's up and running down here at the Learning Hub. Maria, we spoke to you earlier on, but first up, let's get a little bit deeper into it. Tell us about the programme itself.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier it's a 20-week programme for those who are in recovery from substance misuse and addiction. It's 20 weeks. It runs from September until the end of February, and it's 3 days a week for 3 hours. There's 2 QQI level 5 modules, so we have community addiction studies and exercise and fitness. In the community addiction studies, we really focus on the individual, their addiction and their experiences and the impact that has had on the community, their families. But then we also delve into what addiction is and how it's portrayed in the media and different trends and patterns across Ireland and Europe. On the Tuesday, then the lads all do just general exercise, you can see here today. And then on the Wednesdays, they do their QQI level 5 in exercise and fitness.
Okay, so it's a proper comprehensive programme, I suppose, to help get them back on track.
It is, absolutely. Like there's so much involved in the programme. Like it is called Boxing Clever, but it's so much more than boxing, and we really try and help build resilient identities, and that the individuals feel supported throughout, and that their overall physical and mental well-being are improved once they leave the programme.
Can we talk about the hub here itself, because they've got a great facility down there. We popped down to the cafe earlier on.
Oh, we're so lucky. So we use this facility, the Learning Hub in Kinahan, and they're so good to us. Like we have access to a classroom, a kitchen, and then obviously these fantastic facilities as well, and the cafe downstairs. And the Learning Hub, they do fantastic work for the community and young people. They provide educational programmes, particularly in art, music and science. So it is a fantastic base for Boxing Clever.
All right, Maria, we'll come back to you in a moment's time, because next up we have Caelan with us. Good morning to you, Caelan.
Morning, how are you?
Tell us about your story, Caelan.
Well, my recovery would have started in March, just gone. I went into a treatment centre, absolutely shattered as a man. I would have tried to have gotten clean previously, but I was doing it for other people, and eventually I just got sick of it. I hit rock bottom in January. I did it for myself this time, and I'm 7 months clean now.
What was the turning point for you?
I was just seeing the unmanageability in my life, constant failures, losing friends, losing relationships, family, were at their wits' end with me, so I had to go into treatment, and I done it.
When you came here and you first arrived, how did you feel? Were you nervous?
Oh my God, yeah. Oh, I was terrified, because I had a phobia of classrooms. I never excelled academically in school. I was always getting in trouble, getting suspended. I was a pure class clown, and when I came in, it was, way out of my comfort zone, but it wasn't what I expected. It's a brilliant programme.
And what has the programme been like for you? What have you been doing over the last couple of weeks?
Well, we've been studying community addiction studies in the level 5, and we've been doing exercise and fitness, and it's brilliant. You're learning a lot more than just about the drugs, because I come from a family of addicts, and it's a lot more than the drink, the drug, the bit and slip. It's all behaviours. It's generational. It's generational. It can be passed down. It's environmental. So you're learning so much more than the behaviour itself.
You were telling me earlier on, it's all about the support network that you have in here that gives you that daily routine.
100%, yeah. I'd be lost now if it wasn't for Boxing Clever. I was at a place in my life, I was just out of treatment. I was still slightly institutionalised after being away for the 5 months, and I hadn't a clue what I was going to do with my life, and a friend of mine suggested to me that I start up this programme. It would be of interest for me to do it, so I did. I met with Maria over there, did the interview. I'm taking it ever since, and it's absolutely brilliant. It's a sense of purpose for me. It's routine. It's a reason for me to get up out of bed, which is exactly what I need.
And onwards and upwards from here, right?
100%.
Okay, thank you for sharing your story with us this morning. And there we have it, Paul. You, in fact, came through that programme yourself.
I did. I went through the programme 2 years ago. So my story had been similar to Caelan's. So when I came into the programme, it was kind of just coming out of COVID at the time. I had no structure in my life at all. So what it gave me back was a sense of structure, a sense of purpose, and a goal that I wanted to achieve in my life. So yeah, I went through the programme. I came back last year as a mentor, as a kind of go-between between the lads that were doing the course and the staff that were the tutors. And this year now I'm back co-facilitating addiction studies and helping out with Grace here on the other days. So yeah, look, the opportunities that the sports partnership have given me have been priceless. I've gone on to become a personal trainer. I've went on to study level 7 addiction studies last year, and this year I'm studying the level 8 diploma up in Maynooth. So I travel up on a Friday. So look, it's a fantastic programme because the opportunities that it gives people is just second to none. What I love about the Boxing Clever programme is that it works with people on their level. Whatever they're looking to achieve and get out of it, they work with you on that level to achieve whatever you're looking to get.
All right. And I know, Caelan, you want to say hello to your auntie as well.
Just give a shout out to my auntie, Antoinette Shepherd, who's been very kindly let me stay with her. My father, who's up since 7 o'clock this morning, waiting for me to come on.
Danny is tuned in as well this morning. Now, hey, Paul, we're going to leave you with a bit of a challenge. What are we doing here this morning?
So I know we saw you up in League Slip yesterday with the Ireland team with the Saka. So today we're going to have you fight with our lovely Claire.
All right,
so if you want to get your gloves on, and
all right,
here we
so
go.
we have a little bit of music. So in the blue corner, we have Claire all the way from Limerick, and the red corner here. Are we ready? 3, 2, 1, let's go. is where you can find out more online. I think we'll leave it here to the pros. Back to you guys in studio.
That was
okay?
That was Harris versus Trump.
I'm telling you, there you
Except
go.
Harris won that one.
Derek's gone to get medical attention.
It's an amazing initiative down there. It
So
really is.
amazing.
And thank you for telling your stories as well. It really is.
So openly.
So
if it helps
good.
anyone this
Yeah.
morning, that would be amazing. Thank you so much to everyone involved in that. So brilliant.
Nice one. Hopefully Derek's okay. We'll get a check on him during the break. Still to come, the latest from the States as Trump looks set for a White House return.
And also on the show, designer turned dame. We've a dame on the show.
You've got a dame on that. You love a dame.
Oh, Anya Hindmarch is joining us now. We love an old dame on
We
the
do.
show.
And we've got crime journalists. They're going to take us behind a new book on one of Ireland's most notorious gangs. It's all about the Kinahans. We'll see you back here very shortly on Ireland AM. Hello, welcome back to Ireland AM. Here is what is coming up in the final hour of this morning's show.
Yes, first up in this hour, the iconic accessories designer and dame Anya Hindmarch will be joining us at 9:20.
You love a dame.
I love that. Do we bow?
I don't
No,
think
you don't
so.
bow to a
You live in the
person, do you?
Republic of Ireland, love. You live in the Republic of Ireland. Forgot about that. Now we've got something else completely different after a dame. How about this? From assassination attempts to cartel killings. We're going to be talking to two crime writers on their latest release. It's about Ireland's gang warfare. That's coming up at 9:35 this morning.
Plus, we'll be bringing you even more updates from the US of A. Do send us in your WhatsApps on what you make of the presidential election outcome, or at least how it's going at the moment. Our number, as always, 0896 111 111. Now, former President Donald Trump looks set to return to the White House.
Virgin Media News correspondent Richard Chambers joins us live from Washington, D.C. He's been staying up throughout the night for us, and we really do appreciate it, Richard. Now, earlier on in the show, you said that essentially Trump has won. You were like, lads, that's it. That's what's happened. Can you give us the latest on the count? Kamala has picked up more electoral college votes.
Yeah, everything is proceeding as expected at this point, Muireann, but it is running towards an end, and it is a very clear end with what's happening here in the United States, and that is that Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States, the 47th president. He was already the 45th, and it is a remarkable comeback on any level for Donald Trump, having been booted out of office in the White House behind us by the American people, given everything that happened on January 6th of 2021, when his supporters led an armed attempted insurrection at Capitol Hill just down the way from here, and effectively facing another defeat in the midterm elections just a couple of years ago. For him to come back to all of that 8 years on from 2016 really is an extraordinary feat, and it has people in America and around the world concerned, but his supporters jubilant as well.
Yeah, and there he is making he made about a half an hour long speech in Florida earlier on this morning, or night time there, Richard. He's declared victory, and world leaders have been showing their support already and congratulating him on his victory.
Yeah, that's right, Ray. Taoiseach Simon Harris posting a statement saying congratulations to Donald Trump, describing him as the president-elect, although that is not officially the case as of yet. Make no mistake about it, though, Ray, people in government buildings, politicians behind the scenes, as well as officials who work in the government departments, are very concerned about what a Trump presidency would mean for Ireland, both in terms of corporation tax. He wants to slash that in America. That would put Ireland's competitiveness in terms of attracting companies to set up in our country. That would challenge that. So that's something which is a key concern. As well as that, he's going to slap new tariffs, he says, on trade coming into the US. So much of the Irish economy as an island nation depends on trade outside of our borders, particularly with the United States. So that is a big concern as well. And not least, that's with even not making any mention of the fact that he says he wants to give the green light to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in terms of Gaza and Lebanon, as well as saying he wants to stop military aid for Ukraine and change the climate policies of Joe Biden as well. So world leaders are putting on a brave face. They have to say that they congratulate Donald Trump, but make no mistake about it, European leaders in particular have been dreading this moment.
Yeah, certainly he has spoken a huge amount in relation to NATO and their own borders and Europe and what it is that we're doing there. But when we're talking about America, we were looking at a worst case scenario if it was going to be tight. You're in Washington, D.C. The National Guard was on standby. There is one good thing about this, is that the place hasn't been torn apart.
Yeah, Myrna, that was a very real concern, and it had been for a number of days before election night. Washington, D.C. has been on lockdown. There's been fences up outside the White House and other key buildings. You've had additional security protocols put in place. Shopkeepers had been boarding up their windows as well. But on a more serious level, in terms of that election interference, in terms of the political violence, that had been something which places right across America had to take precautions on. You've had drones, police snipers employed at polling stations. People going out to vote had to have their right to vote protected, and the people who work at those polling stations had to be protected. Such was the concern that they may face interference. There was hoax bomb threats were called in. On a major level, though, there has been no real incidents of huge violence to report at this point in time, although we aren't through this whole process yet.
There's currently it's looking Kamala Harris is at 205 electoral votes. Trump is at 266 electoral votes now. 270 is the number he needs to hit. So he hasn't clinched it just yet. He's not the president-elect just yet. But we haven't heard anything from Kamala Harris by way of a concession speech, Richard.
You know, we haven't, and we were at Kamala Harris's election night party. It turned out to be one of the worst parties you could ever possibly attend. From very soon on in the night, it became clear that this was going to be an uphill battle for Kamala Harris. She didn't win those early swing states of North Carolina and Georgia, and despite a lot of supporters, particularly women who'd come to that event, who were very much hoping for a piece of history, to see Kamala Harris walk out on stage as the first female president of the United States. Those hopes were soon dashed, and effectively supporters ended up streaming out into the streets of Washington, D.C., told by an official on Kamala Harris's campaign that she's not going to speak tonight. She might speak later on in Wednesday afternoon maybe, or earlier on in the morning time. But that is not the end they had anticipated, not the end they'd been hoping for, and really recriminations already starting on the Democratic side in terms of how did we get this so wrong? How did we manage to lose the election to Donald Trump, given all those concerns and given the fact that a huge proportion of Americans actually don't really like him? His unfavourability ratings compared worse to Kamala Harris, but despite that, his supporters came out and they won this election.
Yeah, that is something very interesting about that they don't like him, but he is their new leader. Listen, Richard, we really appreciate the shift you've been putting in across the day on Virgin Media for us. We'll talk to you again later on. Thanks a million. Richard Chambers there, live in Washington, D.C. Now it's time to go over to Alan. What have we got coming up next, Al?
Well, one of fashion's most prolific designers, with celebrity fans like Angelina Jolie and Sarah Jessica Parker, and Princess Diana is going to join us after the break.
Welcome back from a style-loving 18-year-old to a fashion powerhouse with celebrity clientele that includes the likes of, here we go, Princess Diana, which you will love, and also Kate Middleton. Anya Hindmarch knows all about hard work and it paying off.
And flying into Dublin for her latest business venture, we're delighted to welcome Anya to the show this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning. It's so lovely to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I mean, you have a wonderful career, but to start off at 18-year-old to set up your own business, you must have been some confident 18-year-old.
Well, I just didn't get offered a place at university. I think it was quite simple. No, you know what? It was an exciting time. There were loads of businesses starting in London at that time. And I come from a family of entrepreneurs. So actually, in a way, the idea of starting a business felt quite natural to me. So, yeah, they're not that confident, probably.
So were there nerves at all, though? Trepidation going into it because the family had that background. Did you think you were learning something from them?
For sure. But I also think when you're young, you're braver, aren't you? I think it's not sort of cocky. It's more that you just think, why not? And you have less to lose, I think, probably. So, yeah, it was young.
But as a female founder, I suppose looking at that now, we see it more these days, where it's kind of like, let's bash and give this a go. But an awful lot of the time in fashion, you know, there's a backer and it will be, you know, dominated by male people. It is an interesting thing to go, no, I can do this at a young age when now it's much more prevalent than it was when you started.
Yes, maybe. But I was kind of fearless at the time and it was exciting and there were so many businesses starting. So there was this momentum actually happening in London at the time, which was quite motivating. And I'm thrilled I did because, you know, here I am at 56, quite a few years later, still in business and still loving what I'm doing.
And why handbags?
You know what, I was given a bag by my mother when I was 16 and I remember how it made me feel. It made me feel, I mean, I was fascinated by the craftsmanship, by the materials and that sort of sense of when you feel good, you are your best self. And I think that's what interests me about fashion, actually. It really makes you more confident. You stand up a bit straight, you look people in the eye. And fashion is funny. In many ways, it's a sort of slightly silly subject. We all have enough clothes. We don't need anything else. But it is quite empowering. And it's quite tribal and it's self-expression. There's all sorts of interesting things. So it always interests me from that point of view. And then I got deeper into the subject and I love all the craftsmanship. That's very exciting.
It's very exciting as well. And like when we're mentioning there at the intro, then the celebrity clientele, how did that come about?
Well, really just by chance, to a certain extent. I think once you start to say, I'm making...
We're looking at this bag, God bless her, God rest her. This is the cleavage bag. Can you tell us about this bag?
Well, she was such an amazing woman, actually, and an incredible ambassador for British fashion, actually. I remember her coming and buying this bag, and she arrived really unannounced with no security at my little store, which was up a rickety staircase in those days. And we used to make that same bag for her with her initial on. And yes, she would refer to it as her cleavage bag to protect her modesty when she got out of the car. So, an amazing woman, yeah.
But isn't that an amazing piece of history that you have there, that she found you and sought you out, which is something that she's very much known for? Like, we know so many pieces of her. We saw Kim Kardashian wearing a piece of her jewellery the other day, the big massive cross. But, you know, between the revenge dress and the cleavage bag, the things that she brought into fashion, so dealing with someone like Princess Diana, what's that like? Because you must have known that it's going to put your name into a different stratosphere.
I suppose, but I don't think you think about that at the time. It's just a deep honour, and I think she was very supportive of British designers, rightly so.
Yeah.
And of course, what you don't realise is the power, of course, that it suddenly does propel you into a different sphere, and the platform that gives you. So it's a huge, huge boon, and I was very grateful for it at the time. And she was an amazing, amazing woman.
And of course, then the royal family connection carried on with Kate Middleton.
Yes, indeed. Also an amazing, amazing powerhouse and an incredible and beautiful ambassador. So we're very lucky in our royal family and we feel very proud of them, I think, in London, actually.
And when it comes to your designs, you've had many it bags. It bags, you know, when we think of it, at the moment, people would know about the Row, Margot bag. Everyone's been talking about it on TikTok for like a year. It's been in vogue, all that kind of stuff. What is a knit bag and how do you create it?
Well, I actually personally hate the idea of a knit bag. We've actually only ever used the formula, and there is a formula, for a knit bag actually to talk about sustainable initiatives or alternatives. So making a knit bag out of, and we launched a bag in 2007 called I'm Not a Plastic Bag, which we did here at Brown Thomas in Dublin. You might remember.
Yeah,
crazy days.
Yes.
And we actually used
this bag
that.
here.
It's that bag.
It was huge.
Someone brought one to a dinner last night. It was so lovely. And in fact, we've gone on to do another project called Universal Bag in a similar way, which is also causing kind of chaos in a different way. But so we've used that it bag formula, one I don't love, to actually, I hope, talk about something quite important. And that's been quite powerful. And of course, it is about, to a certain extent, scarcity. It's about who wears it, of course, and hopefully something that matters. You know, people have got to like it. And I think that the projects that we've done in the environmental space they've been moments where I think people have thought, what can we do? How can we make a difference? And it gives people perhaps a vehicle to feel that they can join that conversation, and an important conversation.
You did say that it has a formula, the it bag. Is it because of the scarcity and it is the one thing that everybody wants at that particular time?
Yes, and by the way, I was so worried they wouldn't sell. So, I mean, it wasn't particularly manufactured, but yes, it was, it is that. I think it's, you know, I mean, it's quite tribal fashion, isn't it? People tend to... I mean, it's interesting. I always think at school you'd have the girl who would wear the ponytail on the side and then suddenly all the other girls copied. And so you have leaders and then you have followers. And so that does happen. That's human nature. It'll never go away, I think, probably.
Your relationship with the company, your own company, with your name, big brand on it, is very interesting because you sold it and then you bought it back in 2019. What was that What was that like, coming back into the game, being like, OK, I'm not doing this anymore? And you're like, no, I want my company back. I don't like what they're doing.
Well, I stayed in the business in a different role. I wasn't running it, so I
Yes,
wasn't completely
running
out. I bought it back because I really miss leading it. And I think I'm quite controlling and quite wanted to get my hands back on it and make it how I wanted it to be. So it was actually really exciting. And a lot of the team that had been there all the way through with me came back, which was really lovely. And so we spent the last 4 years actually really looking at what we stand for and what we love. And we've sort of rebuilt the business. And so that's why it's so lovely to be back in Dublin and actually talking to our customers here again. And actually really thinking, what are your values? What makes sense in this fashion world right now? And for us, we care desperately about craftsmanship. We care desperately about things that make people smile, because actually life's too short. It's only fashion, after all. Important subject.
Yeah.
But still, it should be something that lifts your day. And we care desperately about how things are made and being responsible. And actually, you can combine all of those things together and make hopefully beautiful products that keep materials out of landfill, that that perhaps involve various groups. We make some of our dust bags, or have done in the past, from female offenders in prison, giving people roles. There's all sorts of things we've done. You can use that platform to do some interesting stuff, actually.
To talk about it in squaring that circle, but you also get to do very fun things. You've got Anya's grotto. You've got
festive cheer. You're bringing festive cheer to
She's got
we need that today, right?
How's your grotto? You're all right.
Well, we have 2,500 children descending over the next few weeks, so I think that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Well, when we bought the business back, we had at one point 65 stores across the world, and that was very exciting. But I felt actually that kind of cookie-cutter approach to distribution felt not very modern in a digital world. So instead, we opened a village, actually, of 6 different stores and a cafe. And one store changes all the time. It's like our creative playground. So currently it's a Christmas grotto. And it is actually kind of magical. And we're now beginning to take some of those village hall ideas out, and hence doing this lovely pop-up here in Brown Thomas, and taking that out to the world a little bit. And actually, it's just creatively, it scratches an itch, and it communicates with lovely communities and different projects. And I think I'd be quite restless if I didn't have those creative outlets, probably.
I know what grotto I'm going to be going to.
I was going to say that. We'd be all heading into Brown Thomas to see Anya's grotto.
Do we get to sit in your lap?
Always. Guaranteed.
Anya Hindmarch, thank you so much for joining. And Anya's grotto is open in Brown Thomas in Dublin. Have fun, sit in her lap. It'll be a great crack. Thank you so much. Pleasure to have you here.
You're very welcome back to Ireland AM now. It's been nearly 10 years since the Hutch Kinahan feud began, which resulted in the deaths of 18 people across both sides in just a few short years.
Yeah. Crime journalists for the Irish Sun, Stephen Breen and John Hand, both reported on the events of the feud as they unfolded and have now come together for a book detailing the events that took place. And would like to say hello to John and Stephen this morning. Hello, guys. Gentlemen. It's lovely to have you here. Can we set the scene then, please, Stephen, for the springboard of the Hutch Kinahan feud? Who are they? Where are they based?
Well, it goes back to February 16, in which there was an audacious attack at the Regency Hotel, in which David Byrne, the senior Kinahan figure, was shot dead by members of the Hutch crime gang. Following that, there was a relentless pursuit of anyone attached or associated with the Kinahan crime gang, targeting members of the Hutch associates.
Had they previously worked together, the Kinahans and the Hutches?
I think it's important to remember that they were part of the one gang. They were friends, they were cousins, they socialised together, they went on holiday together, and then that suddenly imploded when Gary Hutch was killed in September 2015.
And then there was a tit for tat then, John. Following on from that then, it was killing, then reprisals.
Yeah, well, we largely saw what this book highlights was the Kinahan onslaught, and the reaction to that Regency Hotel attack was unprecedented, and anyone was a target, anyone associated with the Hutch organised crime gang or the Hutch family. So innocent people were caught in the crossfire. You had friends of Jerry Hutch being targeted, and of course Jerry Hutch himself.
Yeah, what fascinated me was that it's not like they're just gang members going out and killing one another, and that was always our perception of it, because it's always part of this Hutch Kinahan crime war. That's what we were always thinking. But they were bringing in hired killers, professional killers, Stephen, to do their bidding.
Yeah, that was part of their whole modus operandi at that time when the Kinahans were targeting members of the Hutch family, associates of the Hutch crime gang. They wanted to recruit people because they had the money to do so. They brought in people from overseas, they brought in people who had served in the British Army, but they also targeted people who were vulnerable, people who had drug addictions, and they just tried to utilise these people because they had the money to do so. And people were desperate for cash, people, especially those with addiction problems. So that's why the Kinahans turned to them, and these people were willing to take up a gun on behalf of the Kinahan organisation.
And I remember throughout this time always like reading on the front of the paper, in front of the Sun all the time, like these figures, they became headline figures, like Mr. Nobody. John, who was Mr. Nobody? I remember he's always on the front of the paper.
Yeah, well, Declan Brady was someone who was a truck driver, a father of three, lived in a nice home in Kildare. But his big mistake was turning up at David Byrne's funeral 10 days after the Regency Hotel attack. And he was wearing the Kinahan uniform almost. They were all wearing matching designer suits on the day, but they were all under surveillance. And the Gardaí didn't know who he was at the time. But they went about finding out who he was and discovered he was essentially their logistics guy, and he oversaw the arms depot in West Dublin, and he was someone who was also later convicted for his logistical role in the murder of another innocent man, Noel Duckegg Kerwin. But he was never involved in the end point of it. He was always a kind of a step or two above the foot soldier element, and he would have been in contact with then Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, who was based in the UK and their head of the UK operation, and number two, I suppose, at one time in the overall Kinahan cartel.
Wow. There's this guy, Arakas, Imre Arakas. He's in prison, but you managed, Stephen, to speak to, because he's in Lithuania, is that right?
Yeah, so I spoke to him just before Christmas. It's not like Ireland where journalists can't get interviews with inmates in different prisons, but they're a bit more relaxed in Lithuania. So I spoke to him and I asked him about his role within the Kinahan organisation. He was very full of praise for Daniel Kinahan. I asked him why he did plead guilty when he was arrested in Ireland. He came here in April 2017 and he was arrested by the Gardaí trying to kill another member of the Hutch family. But he was someone who was very well spoken, very relaxed, very educated. But at the same time, he was someone who was linked to dozens of murders, someone who had pleaded guilty just last month to another murder in Lithuania. But he was someone that the Kinahan cartel turned to, and he was the calibre of some of the individuals that they turned to because of his pedigree in organised crime.
Pedigree, yeah.
It just feels like something you should be watching on The Sopranos, and it's just happening on the streets of Ireland. You know what I mean? And John, you mentioned there surveillance, the fact that Mr. Nobody got caught because he they were all dressed the same, and that the Gardaí didn't. They were like, "Oh, who's this fella here?" What was the Gardaí surveillance like? Because they went about trying to dismantle this and identify the members of these gangs.
Well, I think you have to remember that the Kinahan cartel were incredibly wealthy and the money essentially was their power. So they were offering up to 250 grand to kill the likes of James Mago Gately, a Hutch associate, and they could hire anyone to do it. So the Gardaí had to come back and match the tenacity and go after these guys. And what they did was essentially they bugged cars in some situations. In other ones, they're just following these guys wherever they go, who they're associating with. But the bugging devices gave a real insight into some of the murder operations and the murder plots, because you got to hear about the money that was being offered in some of them. So in one situation, we heard 100 grand being offered to kill, between three men being offered to kill a Hutch associate. In another one, in the plot to kill Patsy Hutch, Jerry the Monk Hutch's brother, there was a man, Patrick Curtis, who was the on-the-ground controller of that sub-cell created to kill him, talking about how the Kinahans were offering 15 grand to set up members of for people to set up members of the Hutch family or the Hutch organisation. So it gave a real insight into it. And basically what they did was listen until these plots came to a point where they were about to move to kill. And when they were moving to kill, the Gardaí could intervene and have evidence then to bring them to court.
It's mind-boggling, because the guards they're doing their job. They're just going, like, not going through the motions, but they're earning a living doing their job, while you're dealing with people who won't think twice, and that's what was heard in the recordings. They wouldn't think twice. They don't think of human life in the same terms as we do. Even you guys doing your jobs, you both work for the Irish Sun as both crime editor and crime correspondent. Coming together to write this, did you know, as you're working on a project like this together and putting your names on this next to Hutch and Kinahan, do you ever sort of think, I'm putting myself out there and bringing undue attention on myself? John, or Stephen, sorry.
Well, I think in the past there were very few crime journalists writing about the Kinahans and other criminal organisations, but there are so many crime journalists now in Ireland writing about the Kinahans, and I think the Kinahan brand is toxic. I think they're under serious pressure from law enforcement across Europe and indeed across the world. So, you know, we have been writing about these individuals for a very long time, and thankfully no journalist has received any serious threats in recent times from the Kinahan organisation. It's not like it was when Veronica Guerin lost her life. They were more reckless than the criminal gangs. I think the criminals themselves, like the Kinahans, have learned from the previous occasion in which Veronica Guerin was killed and how the state responded to that. So it was never in the back of my mind anyway, I don't know about John, but being worried or concerned about, we're writing about these guys.
It's a fascinating
It's fascinating and it's a web and it's intricate and you really go into it and behind the scenes on this one. It's called Kinahan Assassins. It is out now. Stephen Breen and John Hand, both from the Irish Sun. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Back with you in a minute on Ireland Day. Welcome back. Now, we've been going live to the US all morning to get the latest from the election polls, as it looks incredibly likely that Donald Trump will return to the White House.
Jack Horgan-Jones and Virgin Media News correspondent Richard Chambers have stayed with us for further discussion this morning. And I suppose this is what it's looking like at the moment, Richard, as you join us live from Washington, D.C. It's looking like a convicted felon, as he, you know, we knew this all along throughout the course of the election, and she was a former prosecutor that was going to take him on. She was going to prosecute him throughout the course of her 100-odd days running for the top office in America. But this convicted felon will now be America's next president.
Yeah, that is absolutely the case, Ray. It is actually something which was worn as something of a badge of honour by Trump's supporters. So many times going to Trump rallies over the past number of weeks and months covering this election, you see Trump supporters wearing T-shirts saying the hillbilly and the felon, referencing J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. So Donald Trump, his legal problems will now ease away significantly now that he is effectively the president-elect of the United States. He has his sentencing coming up in the state of New York. That is likely to be pushed back and pushed back. He can say that his political work means that he won't be available to attend court appearances. In terms of the federal crimes that he has been convicted of, those will also now likely effectively disappear. No, we've never tested, of course, before whether or not a president can grant themselves a pardon, but that is something he says he's likely to do. He says he's likely to fire the special counsel who has been appointed to prosecute him on those felony charges. So Donald Trump, the felon, as you say, has been elected as president of the United States. A remarkable political comeback, given that and given everything that's happened in the 8-9 years since he became effectively the main political character in the United States of America.
And Richard, we didn't know what was going to happen in 2016. We had those 4 years where, as we said, you were waking up in the morning going, what will he have tweeted the night before? We're in uncharted territories now as well, considering that we're just talking about a fella pardoning himself and becoming judge, jury and executioner about what's going to happen in the rest of America. A man who doesn't like people to go against him.
No, absolutely. I think that is something which observers would say is going to be different about a second Trump presidency. The first time around, he appointed a lot of middle ground, moderate Republicans, as much as you can call them that, to key roles like Secretary of State, as well as other departments. He soon fell out with them, and now the message that you are hearing from Republicans and from Trump himself, as well as his closest confidants, including Donald Trump Jr., is that that's not how it's going to be for the second Trump presidency. Loyalty matters over everything else. You found that, and people found that to their detriment with Donald Trump in terms of how they fell foul of him personal fallouts. Loyalty matters now to Donald Trump over everything else. He has surrounded himself now with people like Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, the owner of Twitter, the owner of Tesla, like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who says he wants to remove fluoride from the water, and as well as that, put himself in charge of women's health care. That was a major issue in this election. But now, in terms of what happens next for the world, look at things like Gaza, look at things like Ukraine, look at things like climate, and I'm sure you'll hear from Jack in just a moment as well, in terms of the position for Ireland. Corporation tax, trade, jobs, all of these things will now be put into question by Donald Trump, who now will have no guardrails. He will be very much emboldened by what's happened over the last 24 hours.
Richard, thanks so much for joining us this morning. I was going to say go get some sleep, get off to bed with you, but Richard is going to be keeping us up to date throughout the day here on Virgin Media One, and Richard is staying up. Jack Horgan-Jones remains with us. He's the political correspondent from the Irish Times. And Jack, you were saying this is a very disappointing performance from Kamala Harris.
Yes, very much so. I mean, the story that's emerging from the US and from the map that we're seeing now is an extraordinary one. It really is. The coalition of voters that Biden put together has entirely splintered. It's gone in substantial part to Trump, or not reassembled sufficiently to give her any path to the presidency. Now he has multiple paths. The game is over. You look at the kind of blue-collar, white working-class voters back to Trump. They would have supported, to some degree, in swing states, Biden in 2020. Black men, to some extent, not voting in as many numbers for Trump, but not voting sufficiently for Harris. Arab Americans in places like Michigan either staying home or, in some instances, voting for Trump. So that's delivering a swing state, arguably, to him as well. White women not coming out in sufficient numbers for Harris, but Latino men as well. A huge swing away from the Democratic Party and towards the Republican Party, all of which gives him this enormous mandate and gives him winning margins in places like Pennsylvania. I mean, as of about half an hour ago, it looked like he had a lead of 170,000 voters. That's double what Biden won it by in 2020. And that story is repeated across the map. Even in deep blue states like New Jersey, it took till 4:45 a.m. to call that. And, you know, she's 10 points down in Jersey City relative to where Biden was.
We will keep up to date. Obviously, we'll be thinking about what's going on with Ukraine, Gaza, Ireland, the corporation tax rate. But Jack Horgan-Jones from the Irish Times, thank you so much for joining us. We'll keep you up to date, of course, here on Virgin Media News. That's all time for today. But Alan, what do we have coming up on the show tomorrow?
Well, you can join Virgin Media News at 12:30 for the latest updates on the US election, and we'll have more analysis on tomorrow's Ireland AM, plus rugby star Donncha O'Callaghan on being a disaster dad, and you're to guide what to watch at the weekend. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.